Forgive us if we seem a little proud in telling you about this next segment. Thanks to a very generous donation from the Barry and Lori Green Family Charitable Trust and Goldie Feldman, TVO is today launching an ambitious new initiative in local journalism that will span the province. And we're pleased to be joined by the team that's going to make it happen. So let us introduce Mark Brosens, regional editor for our new Ontario hubs. And Mark is going to introduce his team. Go ahead, Brosy.
It's my honor. This is John Thompson. He is the Northwestern Ontario Hubs journalist. This is Jan Jaganovan. He is the Hubs field producer. And Mary Baxter. She's the Southwestern Ontario Hubs journalist.
Welcome to our studio, guys, where I suspect you're going to spend no time during the course of your working lives here, because you're going to be out there doing your thing. Mark, why are we calling these Ontario hubs?
Well, it's because we're going to be on the ground in communities all around Ontario. So we have, for instance, John Thompson's up in Thunder Bay and Mary is in London. They're going to be providing on-the-ground current affairs analysis from those communities. Jan's going to be going all over the province, talking to people in their towns. So there are hubs for journalistic activity. I mean, obviously in this day and age, people are going to be saying, what's the value of doing this? So what's the answer there? Well, you know, if you look around the province, local news has been declining pretty much everywhere. Like, look at a small daily newspaper in Ontario. We had John Miller, who's a professor emeritus at Ryerson, write an article for us just on this. It's just full of wire content. And the problem with that is, you know, to have engaged citizens in Ontario, they need to know what's happening in their communities. So if there's no actual local news for those people, how are they going to know what's happening? We get to do some other fun stuff with this project, which is really important for people around Ontario. For instance, we're going to be partnering with colleges and universities all around Ontario to provide internship opportunities for the next generation of journalists.
So brush up your resumes.
That's right.
Students, there we go.
Yep. So we're in Western and we're in Confederation College. So that's giving back, and we're also going to be putting a special emphasis on Indigenous coverage. So, you know, when it comes to stories about Indigenous people, they're really underreported in media across the province, but they're really important. So we're going to put that special focus there.
I think you're right. The local newspaper across the province is getting less and less distinctive as they use more and more wire copying. There's a sameness to all of it. So yeah, hopefully this will really fill a gap that's out there right now. But just give us some of the history on this and how it came to be in the first place.
Yeah, we were lucky enough to meet Barry and Lori Green and Goldie Feldman. They actually came here for an event where we're kind of celebrating another donation that we got, a donation from a private source that let us build, in part, this studio that we have here. And we got to start talking to them about all these issues, and they were on board. And so they gave us one of the largest donations to journalism in Canadian history, and we're up and running.
Here we go. And we have, in John and in Mary, Northwestern Ontario, Southwestern Ontario, but still two hubs to come, right?
That's correct.
Do we know where they're going to be yet?
That's a big secret.
It's a secret?
Yes, you'll find out.
No. Whisper right here.
No, they haven't even told me yet.
Well, they haven't told you. Okay.
It's above my pay grade. But
Gotcha.
We'll find out in the coming months. It's really exciting. And, you know, there's a whole eastern end of the province that we're not in yet. So I'm not making any promises, but...
But Eastern Ontario seems likely for one.
Maybe.
And...
Who knows?
I'm pushing you here, bro. I'm pushing you, Brosy. I want to see where it's going. Okay. All right. So to that, let's meet these guys here. John, you were the first one hired, so let's start with you here. Just tell us about what you're going to be doing.
I do a great deal of travel. I do a great deal of reporting out of as many communities in Northwestern Ontario as I can get to.
Because Northwestern Ontario is such a small part of the province.
It's enormous. Half the population's in Thunder Bay, though, so that's where I live, and that makes it a little bit easier.
I mean, it's France and Germany and maybe a little bit more put together, right?
It's true.
It's absolutely enormous. Okay.
Yeah.
And you've already started working for us, obviously. We've got some stories up on tvo.org on the website there. And you know, going forward, how do you see yourself contributing?
Well, Northwestern Ontario has a certain role that it plays. When Stephen Harper was in Kenora announcing Highway 20 in 2008, he said that Northwestern Ontario is a corridor, a transportation corridor, you know, getting goods from markets of significance. When Justin Trudeau was in Sault Ste. Marie talking about boom and bust economies, he said, quote, "Like it or not, this is Canada." And the people of Northwestern Ontario are very conscious that this is the role that we are to play.
What do they think of that?
Well, there's long-standing resentment over that because it's impersonal and because it's impermanent. and that affects First Nations and settler communities differently, but you can understand why that would be upsetting. It's they call it northern alienation, and it's the single most robust part of the political culture there. It appears somehow in just about every story there is to tell about the entire region.
And we want to know more about that south of the French River. You know, tell me this. You have decided to make your personal and professional life in Northwestern Ontario. What do you love about the place?
Well, I'm from there, so that's really important to me. And I think when I came home, I felt like it wasn't being covered. I felt like I could do work there, and I felt in working other places and trying to get into politics and activism and media and other places, I didn't have the same passion for it, and I realized this is why I have to come home.
It's in you.
Yeah,
got it. Mary, you are staffing the other hub, Southwestern Ontario, out of London, and I guess I need to find out first of all whether you love Southwestern Ontario as much as John loves Northwestern Ontario.
Well, you know, I didn't grow up in Southwestern Ontario. I actually grew up in Toronto. But that, ironically, started my love affair with the region because we had a family cottage on the Bruce Peninsula. So we spent a lot of time driving between Toronto and there, and I would look at the farm fields and the villages and the forests, and I'd wonder what it would be like to live there. And so basically for the past 20 years, I've been exploring and trying to answer that question, not only for me, but for others as well.
Cool. And same kind of question I asked for John. Going forward, what kind of stories do you want to tell, and how do you see your role with this place?
I think we started off talking about how regional coverage has really, print coverage has really pulled back from regional coverage, from local coverage, that sort of thing. In our area, there's a lot of hyper-local publications and a lot of hyper-local online publications that are coming up. But that regional focus is really getting missed. And there's a lot of stories in the region that affect many, many people. The surprising thing about Southwestern Ontario is that we tend to think of it as unique and disparate communities. And yet we've got a region that is united geographically and physically by the shoreline. You know, you've got Lake Huron, you've got Lake St. Clair, and you've got Lake Erie, and you've got this massive peninsula in between it. And the way people travel, lots of people, they might work in London but live in Chatham, and so there's a lot of issues that are happening that people are wrestling with that are of a regional nature, and that's what I'm hoping to look at. And I'm also looking forward to working with the Faculty of Information and Media Studies at Western and the students there.
I think everybody knows that Southwestern Ontario kind of ends at Windsor. If you're starting here, it ends there. But how far east do you think it goes?
Isn't that a question that everybody wonders about? And then there's the question also, I'm deflecting a little bit here, but there's also the question of Western Ontario. What's Western Ontario as opposed to Southwestern Ontario? Okay. But I tend to think of Southwestern Ontario as being everything kind of west of Guelph. I know there's a lot of people who would disagree with me.
Okay, so it doesn't go as far as Bathurst Street?
No.
Just checking.
That's Western Ontario.
Just checking. Okay. One more for you, Mary. You are a character in a play that's performing in Blythe, Ontario. Have I got that right?
Well, the characters has my name, but it's a compilation of a number of journalists who worked on uncovering a Ponzi scheme back around 2007 that had to do with pigeons.
Where's this play? I gotta see this play. Where is this playing?
So this is playing at the Blythe Festival, which is just a jewel in the Huron County countryside in the small hamlet of Blythe. And the play is called The Pigeon King. And the festival often does original work that's based on different issues in the region.
Is that Southwestern Ontario or Western Ontario?
That's Southwest.
That is
well, again, you might have some arguments there. I would call it Southwestern Ontario.
Okay, gotcha. Jan, I want to distinguish the role that you have from these two, because they are sort of bureau chiefs of hubs.
Right.
You're going all over the place, not just in one region.
I'm considering myself like the roving hub.
You're the roving hub?
Yeah, so I will be traveling between their hubs and everywhere else in between.
Like basically the province is your oyster, right? You're going everywhere? What are you going to be doing?
Well, just to give you an idea of like the week that I've had. Last week I was in Prince Edward County. The week 2 days after that in Niagara. heading out to Sudbury in a couple weeks. So pretty much, like you said, Ontario is my oyster. I will be on the grounds. You'll see my TVO truck or the van. If you see me, come say hello. You may have a story, and you might see it on.
So your suitcase is always packed?
Always.
And you're the video guy, eh?
I'm the video. So in my previous job at CH, I was a one-man band.
Hang on. Some of us are old enough to actually remember what the proper name of that station was. You used to work for CHCH, TV 11 in Hamilton.
That's correct.
Okay.
So I was a Niagara Bureau chief there. I filmed, I did my own editing, I did my own reporting, I did my own live hits. So I'm used to kind of talking to myself. To me, that's normal. So this is kind of, being able to go on the grounds, talk to people. That's one of the things that I learned is you get your stories from the people on the ground. Some of the best stories that I've had were people coming over, knocking on my car, asking, hey, did you hear about this? Did you hear about that? Drive off to a corner and check it out. That's kind of, you need to be on the ground. You can't be at your desk, That's kind of the present day journalism. That's where we need to be. It's
interesting how the business has changed so much. When I started here, we used to take 6 people out as a crew to cover stories. You now do all of the work of all of those 6 people.
I've had some crew. I've had some help. I won't say that. I've been doing it on my own. But I'm used to that. That's some assignments I'll be on my own. So.
Should we take a little example of what you've been doing?
Sure.
Sheldon, can we roll this clip here? This is Jayan at work, his first TVO assignment. Roll the clip.
I knew that a great industry that had been established would be weakened, but it was right to end it.
When they destroyed the actual planes and they destroyed the machines that made the planes and they burnt most of the files, it was like they were trying to erase a piece of history.
We're deploying our autonomous underwater vehicle, the Thunderfish Alpha, as part of the Raise the Arrow search expedition. We're going to be taking our vehicle out into the lake and searching for the Avro Arrow free flight test models.
Searching for a piece of Canadian history at the bottom of Lake Ontario.
Cool.
I hope so.
Okay. Their work is going to appear on this program?
Yes.
There's a website involved as well, too.
That's right.
Tell us about that.
So if you go to tvo.org and go to the current affairs section, there's now drop-down menus at the end of the top bar there. So you'll see something for Northwestern Ontario, Southwestern Ontario, all the work that John and Mary and Jan will be there. We're also going to have work from freelancers, hopefully interns that we have will start to contribute as well. So it'll make it really easy to find this content.
I saw the picture of the Persian there. You did that story, right, on the Persian, the background, or that's part
I didn't. I was the one who brought the Persians down.
You did. You brought the Persians down. Boy, those things taste good. And it's amazing. No calories at all.
No, that's what they say.
I don't think that's true. Okay. I mean, part of the gist of this is, obviously people in Northwestern Ontario want to know what's going on in Northwestern Ontario, but we'd like regions to talk to each other, right? I mean, part of this is getting people in Toronto and Ottawa and Kingston and everywhere else to know what's going on in parts beyond, right?
Yeah, that's a huge part of this project. I think part of the problem with Ontario is we've never really created a cohesive identity of who we are and made big efforts to try to understand how my life here in Toronto is related to someone in Thunder Bay or London or Hamilton. And so part of this is we want to try to create stories that will travel. So you'll see things that, if you live in Thunder Bay, you can look at one of Mary's stories in London and say, hey, I can relate to that. If you live in Kingston, you can look at a Thunder Bay story and say, there's something for that in me too. So that's what we're hoping to do with this, is to show the province that even though this is a very big place, we're all in this together.
Yeah, there's just one example here. I mean, obviously people in the South, John, are fascinated, obsessed, you might say, with stories related to alternative energy, electricity prices, and so on. And what they may not know is, in your neck of the woods, there's been a great debate about what to do with that old coal-fired generating station in Atikokan, and you did a piece on it, and they figured it out.
Yeah. I was in 2003 when the election happened, all the parties said we want to phase out coal. Nobody had any idea of how that was going to turn out. So I actually hitchhiked to this meeting in Atikokan in 2004 or 5, and the whole town came out to hear the government say, we're shutting down the coal plant, and we're going to replace it with something. And people were furious.
Well, it's hundreds of jobs up there, right?
And that was what it was based around. It wasn't around energy security, it was around the jobs and the tax base. 10 years later, they decide they're going with wood biomass. So they constructed these giant silos because the pellets that they're using when they get wet, they just dissolve. And that cost $170 million. The one in Thunder Bay, the technology had advanced, so by the time they built that, so that was like a $5 million change. So now we have these kind of showpiece plants, but there's not much of an industry to be able to feed it. And there's a great question of cart and horse about how fast that industry is moving, how quickly mining is going to develop in Northwestern Ontario, what power projects are going to go through, which ones aren't. And we're talking about billions of dollars in potential. And it's not really clear yet what's going to go through the door first.
It is state-of-the-art technology, though, what they've got there, right?
Absolutely. And it's drawing the attention of people in Asia and Europe and all over North America. The cancellation or potential cancellation of the coal power reductions in the United States under Trump, who's a coal advocate, is going to eliminate or at least decrease whatever market there might have been.
We wish you the best of luck in Southwestern Ontario, wherever that is. And we wish you the best of luck in Northwestern Ontario. And we wish you the best of luck going all over this massive province. And Mark has 10 seconds left to tell me where the next 2 hubs are going to be.
Not yet. I can't tell you yet, but look for these guys' work. It's on tvo.org. It will be on the agenda, and there'll be hits every Friday with Mary and JN and John. So keep an eye out. You'll see their work here.
Ontario Hubs on TVO. We're all going to speak to each other. Good stuff, gang. Thanks so much.
Help TVO create a better world through the power of learning. Visit tvo.org and make a tax-deductible donation today.